Lisa LaBelle, everyone. Loud and clear.
Perfect. Welcome to the L4 podcast. I am your host, Lisa LaBelle, the technology comedian, and this is the very first guest episode. I have with me Philip Tuturice III. Philip Tuturice, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Now, Philip, you work in end user computing. You
Yes.
worked at VMware for 10 years. I'm going to let Philip introduce himself and talk a little bit more about that, about what you do in your professional life.
Oh, sure. Thank you. Well, thanks for having me. And if I understand correctly, this is your second podcast.
Yes.
All right. And it's your first where you have a guest.
That's right. And I'm
So-
excited. You're my first guest.
Wow.
There's a lot riding on your shoulders right now.
Yes, I can feel
Yep.
the pressure, but
Good,
that's okay.
Good. Bring that pressure on. I know you're used to it and
Yep.
you work well under it.
Yeah, I don't mind it, especially in the field. So thank you for the introduction. Thank you for having me. I have been in the end user compute space really for my entire career. More broadly speaking, been technology for almost, 27 years going on at this point, which is kind of wild. The last 10 plus years have been with VMware and user computing. But previous to that, I spent 15 years in telecommunications doing, telephone systems, contact centers, what they would call, on-premise telecommunications gear and software, getting into call center spaces and recording and things of that nature. Many years in technology spanning, really all the way to, mobile devices and desktops and virtual desktops and application delivery and, endpoint security. All of this is really kind of culminating into, an autonomous workspace that's self-healing, self-configuring, and self-securing. But that's kind of, really the future vision. As I said, been doing it, for a number of decades at this point, which is kind of crazy to even say that. But I started, really when I was right out of school and found myself an opportunity to really, employ my skill set. I've always been technically minded. I've always been a bit more of an engineering mind. I'm not a trained engineer by any means, but certainly more engineering minded than some. I've always been fascinated with technology. I've always been fascinated with tools. My dad raised me on how to use tools. My dad is a steel fabricator by trade, a foreman over the years, and really ran a shop that dealt with heavy metal and fabrication of large steel structures and things of that nature. But anyway, he instilled in me, the importance of tools, and really with tools, anything is possible. And, really technology is simply tools. And I just think it's so cool that we can dream up and innovate and create technology and tools that allow us to change the world and at a much more micro scale, change people's workflows and really make us more productive. And that's really what it comes down to in my mind, is the more productive that we can be as individuals, the more productive that we can be as a whole, the more we can achieve as a species, really, when you want to take it to that level. So I've been in technology a long time, and I've been fortunate to have been very successful in the organizations I've been with. You mentioned VMware. Before that, the company I was with was called Mitel, and I started there on the operations side before I moved into the business side, on the sales side of the house, if you will. So I really cut my teeth by actually implementing these systems with customers on site, and seeing how, these things actually impact the user and the business ultimately. And, I got into this space when I was 21 years old. Actually, if you're really going to go back, I got into it, I think, at the age of 19, when I was a call center agent for Comcast. And we were the call center that would take calls for customers that would dial 411 on their cell phone. This is back in the late 90s. And if you wanted information, if you wanted an address or a telephone number, hey, give me the address to Joe's Pizza Shop. We didn't have Google like we have today. We didn't have smartphones. So people would dial 411 on their cell phone, and that would come into a call center. And so that was really my first, I think, job. That was my first job that actually, I think, really sparked my interest in business technology, because I didn't, I was exposed to tools as it pertained to steel fabrication or automotive. I went through high school going to VOTech and really thought I was going to be an auto mechanic is really what I was going to be. Yeah. I mean, I loved mechanics. I loved engineering. I loved, these machines. But I was never exposed to business technology. I was never exposed really to PCs. I mean, my family, we didn't have, computers growing up. I graduated high school in 1996, so there was computers, but it wasn't ubiquitous like it is now. We just didn't have it. That's just, my mom and dad just didn't, explore computer technology, at least at home. And so when I was exposed to it at this call center job, I remember seeing the data center room, all the blinking lights and all this gear, all this hardware, the buzzing sound of the fans and the blinking LEDs. And I just thought, wow, that's really cool. And I started talking to some of the technicians that were working there. And I'm just a call center agent, and I'm a kid. I'm 19, but I was fascinated with what they were doing. And they started to talk to me about how the calls would come in over lines and how they would get, queued up and then fed to the different agents and all that. And that really kind of, I think, sparked my real interest in technology for business applications and how technologies are used as tools for businesses. So anyway, that's where it all started. And then it really went on from there. And again, like I said, I got into implementation and working with customers and seeing how what the salespeople sold actually got implemented and what it did for the users and for the actual business. I really got a firsthand seat when I was very young to see what that really meant. And I remember thinking, wow, I can't believe people pay $50,000 for, 50 phones for like say for like a car dealership or something. This was, basic businesses.
Right.
And I said, wow, that's a lot of money to spend. I'm 21 years old at this point. I'm jumping around a little bit, but I moved on from the call center and I started working for a company where we were implementing PBXs, which is a phone system, essentially. They call them private branch exchanges. That's
acronym. You got the acronym down.
That's an old acronym. It's a very mature space, but
retro.
Yeah,
a retro.
I don't know
acronym.
if I would say retro, but
we'll bring it back. We'll bring it. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, now they're all voice over IP, PBXs, and so that term I don't even know if is used anymore. I've moved on from that. So
sure.
Years later, after I spent years at Mitel in operations on the operations and implementation side of the house as a project manager, I moved to sales and eventually, I was exposed to VMware because Mitel was the first to fully virtualize the PBX, which was actually a pretty big deal because until then, a PBX, a business phone system, was what they would consider a walled garden. The architecture was very proprietary. You bought the phones, you bought the modules, you bought all the gear at the head end and in the data center. You bought all of that. It was all a complete system. It's considered a walled garden, and there was no interoperability with other. You wouldn't buy a phone from this brand and a control module from this brand. It just didn't. It was all from one company. And there was some goodness to that, and there's some some downsides. But VMware was the first to offer. Mitel was the first to fully virtualize the PBX. And when I learned about VMware, I remember thinking, "Wow, that's amazing." I mean, we're talking about VMware in terms of its core technology with virtualizing a server.
Yeah.
So being able to get multiple servers off of one piece of hardware. And that was just revolutionary in terms of what you can do from a density perspective and all the benefits from cooling and power savings and all kinds of benefits that comes from that.
Yeah, that swept the Silicon Valley a bit. There was a lot going on back then, but that was a big one.
Oh, huge.
Yeah.
Huge. I mean, that was absolutely huge. And that's why VMware grew so fast and was, I think at one point the 5th largest software company in the world. When you especially compare that to the Microsofts and the Oracles, right? I mean, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I was exposed to VMware and I just, thought, wow, this is it. This is amazing technology. And so I quickly learned as much as I could about it, even while I was not working at VMware, because I was thinking about, oh gosh, how can I sell my Mitel platform in a virtualized manner with all the benefits that virtualization brings along. And it's actually the first to sell a fully virtualized system when I was at Mitel.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I jumped on
Exciting.
that. Yeah, it was cool because it was amazing technology. The benefits are real.
Yeah.
You just had to find a customer that was willing to, get on that journey and be an early adopter. And
Right.
now it's commonplace. And so anyway, then I was exposed to VMware, and I said, "Wow, that'd be a company I'd like to work for." And a couple years
And you
back
did.
after that, I went and sought out an opportunity, and then I had a lot of success. And that's when I really, when you say I'm in the end user compute space, that formally is more of the end user compute. When you think about the desktop, is really kind of end user compute, like a PC or a Mac. That's kind of the end user computing, the client space in the enterprise business. But I look at end user computing a bit more broadly. And I think it's really anywhere we interface with the end user, right? And I think even a phone, like a phone system, which is what I'd done before VMware, I think that falls under the space of end user computing. It's where I like to say where the rubber meets the road, is where the human interfaces with the technology and the tool.
Right.
And so, so anyway, joined VMware. I didn't even know what quote unquote end user computing was at that point. I had no idea. I just knew a server virtualization, but I quickly, realized that the vision that VMware had around taking this end user computing technology and really kind of collapsing it all into a single platform and a digital workspace, I thought was just really, an awesome concept. And so, I think that interest and that passion for what their mission was and what the vision's been really allowed me to, demonstrate, my real interest in it to my customers, and really allowed me to dig into it. And I had a lot of amazing people around me. So that's really helped, always having, it's not just about, what you can do yourself. It's about who can be there with you to get the job done and help you be successful.
Absolutely. Your team has to have the same vision and goals, and they have to be just as driven.
Yeah. And, you have different skill sets from different people. And so I was able to, join a team that had amazing talent, and we worked together really well. And I say all that because that's really, I think, what allowed me to get all those awards is working with a great team of people, and, bringing my passion to it, and then working with awesome individuals who just have amazing talent and drive. And we made some great things happen. And, I've got some great awards, and we've, done a lot of cool things with customers, in terms of transforming their businesses and doing just very different things for them to help them, drive their businesses. So, as you can probably figure out, I can talk for a while. I don't even know if that's the full introduction that you were expecting, but
I wasn't expecting anything. I wanted you to talk and tell me about what you do, because it's exciting to hear you talk. So whatever came out of your mouth, I knew was going to be exciting. I mean, it's exciting because you like what you do. You know a lot about what you do, and you've been doing it for a long time. And you just explained this road that you went on. And I think that it's great when you find something that interests you and that you can really dig your heels into it. And something that transforms, that makes a person of business better is really cool. I mean, the VMware's software did that. It, like you said, it transformed businesses, and which is incredible, I'm sure. And now those businesses went on to thrive and do other things.
I would say it transformed the industry is really what it did, which then allowed customers to then transform how they went about with their infrastructure technology, and then really drove a lot of efficiency. Which then created the cloud. And I mean, really, it's been amazing. Now, unfortunately, VMware is no longer its own company.
Where do you think they went wrong? No, I'm kidding. What's the scuttlebutt? I am kidding. That happens. It happens. There's businesses that are great, and then they get acquired. And that happens by a big behemoth like Broadcom, which is who acquired VMware.
Yeah, well, it happened because they didn't stay disciplined. As an organization, they really wanted to be everything to everybody, and they wanted everybody to like them, which is great. To have your customers like you, but you got to be disciplined and understand that the business needs a certain level of rigor and of hard decisions to keep it sustainable forever. And
for
they
sure.
didn't do that. They had too many products. They had too many layers of people. They had too many, gives to the customers, and that's really what Hock Tan saw is that they were, giving discounts that were just extremely high. Now, granted, virtualization started to become not the thing after a while, right? Now you started to have container. Yeah, you started to have different types of technology that would get rid of, that would really move away from server virtualization. Then you started to have things like containers and different architectures.
So what did Hock Tan see in VMware then?
Well, he realized that there was a customer base.
Oh, sure.
That
absolutely.
Well, not just a customer base, but a customer base that was captured. Meaning you have a number of types of businesses, whether it's federal agencies or large corporations, big banks.
Captured, tethered. Tethered.
Right, they are. They're held. They're held.
They're held in.
And it's a competitive moat in a lot of ways. And so you've got these customers that will be very challenged to move off of VMware server virtualization just because of how they're architected, the legacy, the cost of change, and the fact
which can be high. The cost of change.
Yes, that's a very good statement for sure. I mean, it's accurate, but you have the cost of change, like I said, but you also have just the fact that it is, a market leading product. I mean, still is considered one of the best products out there, period. And from an infrastructure perspective, a virtual infrastructure perspective, it's the market leader, hands down. Can you get other products that do the job that are cheaper? Sure, yes. But, when you think about not just the product, also the community, the skill set that's out there still, you got all the people, all the work and the energy that's already gone into, setting these environments up that are running great.
Sure. Yeah.
It's hard for a business to say, oh yeah, we'll take on the effort and the cost and the risk to make a change. And a lot of companies are not in a position to do that. Like, again, big corporations, federal agencies, big banks, et cetera. They can't make the change. You can't do it. So Hock Tan says, okay, I've got a customer base. Maybe they had a customer base of a couple 100,000 customers, of which maybe there's 2,000 that are in this position that really can't change.
Yeah.
And so what he does is he'll say, okay, with those 100,000, 200,000 customers, whatever the number is, you guys are important, but you're not as important as these 2,000. And so, what we're going to do is we're going to reduce our SKUs, the number of products that we sell. And we're only going to offer, I think they're offering 2 or 3 at this point. I'm no expert right now on Broadcom, but it went from, I think they had they had tens of thousands of SKUs.
Wow.
Oh yeah. All different kinds of products.
He's trimming it up. He's trimming it up. It was living life on the Cool Ranch Doritos and Mountain Dew. And he came in and he's like, we're going on a diet.
Yes, exactly.
Now you get to have protein shakes and
kale.
And chickpeas.
Yeah. So he came in and cut it all out, and
it's a handsome business now.
Well, very. I mean, they're producing more profit than they did, and they've got a lot less employees, so the efficiencies and the productivity is way through the roof per head. Unfortunately, you have a lot of people that have been laid off, and that's the downside.
Yeah.
But this is how businesses work. There's a life cycle to every organism or organization.
Yeah.
There's a life and a death.
That's it.
And granted, you can say there's some companies that have seemingly defied that for some period of time, but ultimately there will be some change or some downturn of that business or something that will change that business. Nothing lives on forever. Period.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
So yeah, it's really interesting, but now unfortunately the customers don't like them. When years ago,
is that right?
Well, yeah, because the prices are through the roof. I mean, the prices have gone up through the roof because they can. Because he's saying he's got a captured audience now. These customers cannot change.
Yeah, sure.
And so he says, "Here's the price. Take it or leave it."
Mm-hmm.
And now you got some customers that are leaving, no doubt, right?
Yeah.
And he knows that. That's to be expected. I'm sure they modeled that into their modeling when they were valuing the company and their offer and the acquisition. But when you break it all down with much less headcount,
Yes.
with much different SKU structure, much less complexity to how the business runs, the savings, the efficiency, and then you take that and you say, well, here's a higher price on the product for these customers, you get overall a much better performing company.
And do you know what about the structure of the sales reps? Was there a ceiling, commissions? Do you know anything about that? Did that all change? Do you think that got all restructured?
Yes, that's all changed now. Now they're comped very differently, and they get stock, and there's a lot of people that are happy about the stock because the stock has been performing well, and it actually has been performing well for quite some time now.
No, I'm kidding. The market goes up and down.
Well, in aggregate over time, it's been it's up.
Absolutely,
big time. It's
absolutely.
up. In the last 10 years, Hawk10 has turned that business into a real juggernaut.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I heard Jim Cramer talking on Mad Money. Is it Mad Money, his show?
CNBC, Mad Money.
CNBC, and someone called in. A lady from New York, and she would talk like this, I feel like, and she was like, I have Broadcom, and I'm just wondering if I should keep it because it's down a little bit. And he said, keep it. Broadcom is a winner. Keep it.
Yeah, he likes
buy. His button. Buy.
Yeah, Jim Cramer's great. He's been on for years. He's full of energy, but hey, he likes it because even though customers don't like Broadcom and Hawk10, they don't have to, but they need the product. They need a good quality service. They need a good, innovation, and then Hawk10's giving them that. But he's also charging, a much higher rate than what VMware did. And that's ultimately
the investors
turning into
love
the
it.
investors love it. The stockholders
The investors
love
are
it.
happy.
That's right.
And hey, you got to keep your investors happy.
But you were asking about the sales reps. I mean, so sales reps
Yeah.
are capped. They don't have a commission structure that's uncapped. And so from a sales perspective, a lot of people don't like that because, one of the things about sales is, the unlimited earning potential. And, the smarter you can be, the more you put in, the more work you dial in and get real tight with and sharp with, you can do better. And it's a way to, improve your standing in life and serve your family and, feed your family, et cetera. So.
And VMware had a great comp structure from my understanding.
Yeah. I mean,
pretty good. It kept people happy.
Absolutely.
It kept the talent there.
That's right. They paid very well. They gave good
health
stock.
care, good. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Great health care, et cetera, all that. I mean, great services. You called in for help desk service, IT help, for example, and you'd get somebody right away. And, and it was it was very good, but very costly. So it had to change, unfortunately, because it just got to the point where there was a company like Broadcom saying, oh, there's opportunity here to make more out of this for the stockholders, for the shareholders than what they're doing currently. So.
Yeah. That's well, thank you for sharing all of that. That is interesting, and your thoughts about VMware. I do appreciate that. Where do you think the future is going in your business? And what I mean by that is it seems like technology has catapulted in the last 5-6 years, and especially I'd say since COVID, because everything had to either go digital or I know restaurants, I think John Taffer, is it John Taffer, he goes into the restaurants and makes them more efficient.
Bar Rescue.
He started working with a company to automate restaurants because they didn't have workers. And so automation really sort of catapulted, and so did other things like that ChatGPT came out. And so along those lines, and AI and agents particularly that can AI agents that can do, they're getting really sophisticated.
Oh yeah.
And so where do you see the future of the business that you're in? Where do you see that going in the next, let's go out 20 years.
Oh my gosh, 20 years.
Let's be futurists.
Yeah. Well,
Is that a little easier, or is whatever is easier? 5 years might be a little too hard to. All right, let's do that. Let's go. Where do you think it's going to be in 5 years? And then where do you think it's going to be in 20 years?
Oh gosh. I mean, that's a hard question to answer. I mean, clearly things are going to change quite dramatically, I think. But you're asking about how it's going to change in my space. I don't think that's. I think it's very relevant, relative. It's going to change with the rest of our society and the rest of the industry. If you're asking about my space in particular around end user computing, or you're asking,
end user computing, what you work with, what you're familiar with. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, listen. So in the space that we're in, it's only going to become more relevant because you're going to have more technology, you're going to have more applications, more devices are still, growing. The number of devices that we interface with, the Internet of Things, more things are getting connected. We as humans are interfacing with technology more and more, whether it's with cameras here, devices like this, cell phones, laptops, et cetera, Internet of Things, a refrigerator, a car, right? There's only more and more things that are getting connected to the network. And that's all, in my perspective, that's all relative to end user compute. It's all related.
Sure. Yeah.
When you're talking about a digital workspace and my space in particular, we're going to see more need and more use of virtual desktops or desktops as a service, where you'll have more companies that are not buying physical PCs, that they're going to do things where it's a virtual desktop or a desktop that's delivered out of a cloud. Amazon, Microsoft, Google has one. We've got our solution. There's the old stuff like Citrix. It's all ways of delivering a desktop to a user. Now, does the desktop change over time? I think in 20 years, absolutely. It'll be interesting to see how AI changes the way we interface with desktops and an operating system. The reason that we have these systems is for the application. So I think as applications change and that space changes, it's going to change what the end user device is going to look like to some degree. But I think broadly speaking, things are going to be changed. And you said it's changed since COVID. I would say you're right. I think it's only changed more dramatically even since the splash that ChatGPT made.
Yeah.
AI has been used for many years.
Sure.
But ChatGPT just showed us as in the general population, the average person that's become more comfortable with applications on their phones. It's shown everybody that, wow, look at the power that we're capable of. Look at what we can do, and the fact that you can have a machine generate content, generate text, generate images, generate video with a prompt, with a basic natural language prompt that the user,
or
a basic
text
user,
to graphic or text to video. Right. That's incredible. Sora and ChatGPT does graphics. ChatGPT made my graphic.
Exactly. And all you had to do as a basic user is type in, give me, a cool image that had blue and purple and it has an L4 or whatever it is. And
you put text in it. Now it has a problem it had a problem spelling my last name in some of them, but then it gets it right. But it is interesting how the landscape is going to change. Would you consider a humanoid, a bipedal, or whatever, a robot of sort? It doesn't have to be a bipedal, but would you consider that an end user computing?
No, that's an interesting question. I've asked my own CTO if we were thinking about how we would manage those devices, how we would, take control of those devices, provision an OS to those devices, push down patches and profiles and policies to these devices. I mean, essentially, it is going to be a device.
Or a what's the word? Quadruped. So the dogs, have you seen Spot?
Oh, quadruped? Is
it quadruped? Have you seen Spot, Boston Dynamics? Yeah. And then, of
Spot's
course,
been around for a while.
all the other, there's a bunch of other companies that have them now. But yeah, Ghost Robotics. So because those are used maybe in the areas that you guys sell to. I mean, government uses them and construction, all these other areas. But yeah, that would be an end user compute to connect all of your devices to?
I mean, that's a hard question. I mean, I'd be...
Or a drone?
Well, it depends on what the operating system is. And if we want to consider getting into that space, we're doing a lot with, with Internet of Things like, say, Google Glass or the Apple Vision, or what's the one? There's another one that just came out recently. Again, it's these devices that are being used in businesses need to be managed. I've got a use case with a retailer where they've got GoPros on a cart that gets pushed down the aisles in the middle of the night. Now,
sorry. For everyone who's listening, he pointed to my GoPros in here.
Right. And they've got it connected to a Linux machine that's got powered by an NVIDIA processor.
Sure.
And they are sending the data up to Google's cloud for some analytics and some of the AI that they're using there for computer vision. And
interesting.
These cameras are capturing the images from the bays along the aisles. The different aisles and the different bays are stocked with product. And this cart is getting pushed up and down the aisles in the middle of the night, and it's capturing the images. And it's using computer vision to then determine what needs to get restocked. And they're creating basically a work list for the associate for the next morning. So when they come in the next morning, they've got a complete work list on what needs to go get stocked.
That's interesting. That's great.
And that's a device. Now, granted, we're not managing GoPros.
Right.
That's not something that gets managed, but we're managing the Linux operating system that needs to be patched and provisioned and patched and managed, and policies and things of that nature. And be able to remote control into it, to be able to do tech support. If there's a problem with it, we can remote control into it and see the screen. And so, but I share that story because
that's considered an end use compute.
It falls under the realm. I mean, it's kind of a, we call it end user computing because historically it's always been about an end user where they do their computing, a client. Traditionally or historically a desktop, right?
Yeah.
But the term is really, I think, and I don't know what others that are thought leaders in the space feel about it, but I think it really expands out to all these things.
I consider you a thought leader, so.
Well, I appreciate that, and I think some of my peers do as well.
So, I was just thinking, there's a company called Nightscope. I researched them a little while ago, but they have security robots, but these robots, you could have a GoPro on those that go down the aisle, just kind of wheel their way around.
Oh, sure, yeah. Well, how that's done, but that's not. We're not controlling that. That's not. We're not involved in that piece of it. So every business has to decide, where they're going to play, and you've got to be, smart with determining what your product can do, what you want it to do. What is it, in line with the vision?
Good point.
Do you have the
capabilities?
The capabilities? Do you have the investment that's needed? Is there enough of a market there to serve to make the investment in the R&D worth it? Right. So there's all these other ways to look at it. But yeah, that's so. Some people would consider peripherals like scanners and mouses and monitors as considered in the end user compute space. And will they be managed, and will the firmware on those types of things be managed remotely and centrally? We don't do that, but I'm sure somebody's thinking about it or has some capabilities of doing that. It's it's all up to each individual company to determine what they're going to control.
And user compute, I think that landscape is going to change dramatically because, like you said, end user computing is the person on the other side of it, the human being, basically. And now that we have AI agents handling the other side of it,
Right.
there's going to be less human beings in the game doing end user. So now the landscape of end user computing, it's changing.
Absolutely.
And it seems ever changing. And
Right. Now you're right. So what if you have less users out
you're
there?
going to have less users,
You have less people
more
needing devices,
agents,
more agents. Right.
more humanoids.
That's right. Yeah. So maybe to help you understand a little bit more about end user computing, I mean, so you've got a few different areas of technology, and I'm going to speak in very general.
Yes, please.
Here.
That's that for our audience who, yes, it's appreciated.
Yeah. So I mean,
For me.
very simply,
Really.
just to kind of keep it very, very simple. You've got a data center. That's where all the servers are. That's the central spot where everything is hosted from. And that's either in your building or it's some hosted like from maybe Google or Amazon or whatever. And that's the data center side. And there you've got compute, you've got storage, you've got networking. All right. Then you've got some sort of transport. And so the networking will extend from the data center out to a device, a user. So once it gets out to the user, that's end user computing, very generally speaking,
Sure.
right? So inside the data center or in the network or end user computing. And then, security really kind of umbrellas all over all of it, right? Quite frankly. So. It
will be changing. That's for sure, but not in a while because change is expensive.
Well, change is expensive.
It
and
requires
I think
hardware, which is what's more expensive? Is hardware more expensive than than a cloud software? It does. Yeah.
That's a very, it depends.
I don't know what I'm asking.
No, you don't.
I just know that hardware for podcasting is expensive.
Listen,
so
like,
that's
I'll give you an
I'm
example.
linking it back to.
it's so, okay, let's take this laptop here or my phone. What, $1,000 or $1,500 or $2,000, right? So $1,000 to $2,000 for this device. Okay.
Yeah, iPhones are expensive. Right.
So you've got that. Now you buy it and you own it and it's your asset that you have forever. Okay. And you spend let's say $1,000 for this phone. Okay. Now to manage that phone with a enterprise mobile device management platform, or what we now call unified endpoint management platform, where it's managing multiple types of these different devices, not just one type. You're going to pay, maybe $100 or less a year for a license to manage this one device. Now, depending upon what functionality you're getting with it, it can go down to, $10 a year for this device. There's a broad range,
sure.
How much.
We're speaking in very general terms.
Right. So, but that's not something that you're going to own. Most companies now, they're buying their software as a SaaS offering. Some companies are doing their own thing, and there's a lot right now that a lot of people that believe that there'll be more homegrown software now because of the AI and really
DeepSeek R1.
Open source. It's an open source AI, right? But using any of these AI tools, whether they're open source or not, you could build, applications that you weren't able to build as easily in the past. Granted, you're still going to have a problem of how you got to maintain it. You got to have a team that supports it. So there's a reason companies exist and sell their product. It's not just the product itself; it's the entire support that comes along with it.
It needs a lot more time to do it in house, figure everything out, and
there's pros and cons to everything. There's pros and cons to everything. So you asked the question, what's more expensive, hardware or software? In that case,
straightforward question, I guess.
Well, because the software continues on forever. It's it's not a perpetual. You don't own it. Listen, again, some software is perpetual, but less and less and less software is perpetual anymore. Meaning you buy it and you own it forever. And even if you buy and own it forever, even if it's a piece of perpetual software, any business, especially any enterprise business, is going to have a support contract on that piece of software. So you're going to pay that forever. Now, granted, a lot of businesses will also have a support contract on a piece of hardware. So it's a hard question to answer because this really just depends. Some software out there per seat is way more expensive because of what it does than, you know, a mobile device management software. Say it's a Bloomberg terminal piece of software. That's tens of thousands of dollars, and I only know enough to be dangerous, but I know it's multiple orders of what it costs to, say, for example, manage a mobile device.
Really?
So in that case, it's a much more, but you're not selling as many of those, right? So selling a license or a seat to manage a device like a laptop or a phone, I think there's 700 million Windows PCs out there alone. And then how many mobile devices are in the world? I mean, there's billions. So the pure number of these devices out there that need to be covered, it's a different scale. It's a different market.
Yeah.
So it's your question of what's more expensive, hardware or software. It's maybe if you did the real math. I mean, I'm just, you know, spitballing and talking off the top of my head.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you did some real numbers, maybe one does ultimately come out as more expensive generally. But that's going to require much more of a research on my side to give you an accurate answer. I think
it seems like there's a lot of factors that go into it.
From my perspective, yes. You know, and in my time and working with hardware and software, yes.
Yeah.
Just depends on what it is and a lot of elements.
Have you seen, so there's a company called Figure One, Brett Adcock.
Making robots?
They're making robots, and they're humanoids, bipedals, and Brett, I talked about this on my last podcast, but he put his bipedals in BMW, I think the South Carolina plant.
Oh, where they make the X models.
Okay. Yes, you know a lot more about cars than I do. I know just enough to be dangerous. But Brett, he just showcased, well, so he did have a deal with OpenAI, and then to put basically their software into his robots, and then DeepSeek R1 came out. I don't know if this is related. I don't know, but this is the order of things. It just seems, I'm just sort of juxtaposing or tying it. But DeepSeek R1 came out, and then Brett made an announcement that they were dropping OpenAI and they were going to do it in-house. Mm-hmm. And so they just released their ad video and for their in-house AI called Helix. And I'm going to show you, I want your real life reaction here.
Oh yeah. Wow.
Here we are. There's a guy, he's standing in front of two of the Figure humanoid robots. He has a grocery bag. He just took food items out of the grocery bag and put it on a counter in front of them. It's in a kitchen setup. It appears to be. So one of the bipedals is next to a refrigerator. The other one has a tray next to it. And what they have to do is take the items and put them in the proper places. So, does this belong in the refrigerator?
They're putting away their groceries.
They're putting the groceries away, and they're determining, does this belong in the fridge? Does this belong in the pantry?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
wow.
look, and they look at each other. They look at each other. Why? This is like humans.
That's wild. Yeah. So
isn't that wild?
Yeah. I mean,
that's Helix. That's their software, Helix.
I don't know why. I mean, listen, I'm fully of the belief that this is exactly where everything is going. I mean, I don't see how it doesn't. So
these dudes, these are going to be our end users one day. We're going to have to learn robot. I'm kidding.
Well, yeah. Like I said, I'm asking the question internally at my company. Are we thinking about managing these robots, these humanoids, as devices? And
Good.
the answer
I'm
is
glad
yes.
You're asking that question because I love robots.
Well,
right now they're not evil yet.
Yeah. I mean, we've got to be thinking about the next. We've got to be thinking ahead. And so you were saying earlier how much things have changed in the last 5 years, and I think it's only going to change more in the coming years. And I think that's really exciting with what we're going to be able to accomplish with it. A lot of people are nervous because it's a lot of unknown, and this technology has, I think, a lot more power than what our previous technologies had. I think it really is a change. It's a turning point, in my opinion, or it's an inflection point, I guess is the term people are using.
Then
It's a
the
big
previous,
difference.
what was the movie? I think it was in the 80s. I'm not sure if you saw it, but I remember seeing posters of it. It was a robot. I got to look this up. It was a very popular
The
kids movie.
Terminator? Oh,
No, but I'm not explaining myself. It's a kids movie, and it was a robot that was. It seemed like he was kind of put together haphazardly, and I wonder if my audience knows what I'm talking about. But
I don't know.
it was just very clunky and kind of cute, but it is a movie from the 80s. I'll have to circle back around to you guys about that movie, but I remember seeing that, and yeah, we've come a long way. Like you said, these humanoids are getting sophisticated.
Things are going to change faster than they have in the past.
Yeah,
I do believe
would agree
that.
with you
I
there.
think that AI is it's a different thing. It's a different, it's got a different weight to it
Yeah.
than what previous technologies have had.
There's going to be more robots than humans. I would say in the next 15 to 20 years, President Xi, he declared last year that he wanted a mass production of humanoid robots by 2025. And there's a company there called Unitree, and they just showcased their robots at the Chinese Spring Festival, and they did a synchronized dance. There's 16 of them, and they put these floral cotton vests on them to blend in. But so Unitree is making leaps and bounds, and people in China are getting acclimated and sort of thrown into that world. So in 10 years, if you go over to China, you might be walking amongst a bunch of humanoids. And we need to get on top of it. We got to stop the red tape. We got to make sure, just like anything though, I'm sure with software, there's a lot of red tape. And I think that regulation is good in like pharmaceuticals probably and consumption, but things like engineering and technology, I think we got to lift the red tape and not have people jump through fiery hoops so that we can get on with it, man. Let's get on with it. Is there a lot of red tape in your industry?
Not particularly. No,
Good.
technology's been pretty good actually. I think the AI companies though do need some guidelines to work within because they don't want to go too far off the rail and then all of a sudden the government tries to pull it back and there's all kinds of investment that can't be unwound, and so
Yeah.
there needs to be some definitions and some guardrails and some some guidance,
Yeah.
but ultimately allowing the free market, allowing companies to innovate fast.
That's the word.
And
fast.
so you need a lot of things. You need capital, you need investment, but you do need power, you need infrastructure, and so I'm hopeful that we do make those investments because that's what's needed. You need some infrastructure to support all this. But you're right, we got to move.
We got to move. Everyone needs to get back into their office.
Oh yeah, right.
Remote work is over. Jamie Dimon, his rant was great. I believe you heard it.
Oh yeah, a couple weeks ago or week and a half ago or so. Yeah.
That was a great rant.
The
Go listen
leaked-
to it, people.
Leaked audio. He was dropping the F-bomb.
He was dropping those bombs, son, all
Yeah,
over.
because he was pissed because people weren't engaging in the same way. I mean, the reality is people don't engage the way they used to. I've seen it myself. Yes, there's a lot more convenience working from home in a lot of ways, but there's also a lot more distractions, even just simple distractions in that when you're sitting at your desk, especially if you're not on camera. I mean, when on my
Yeah.
calls, I can't force my customers. Thankfully, I have a lot of my customers come on camera, but in terms of the folks I work with, even if I don't have operational authority over them, I call people out. You're going to be on, hey, come on camera. Where you at? And so
Yeah.
I've been on camera since day one, only because I think it's important to just simply start to show up, be there, show up and demonstrate you are engaged, and then be engaged.
Absolutely. If Fetterman, hey, he shows up. He wears a hoodie and shorts, but
he's there, I guess.
He shows his face. He's like, I am here.
Yeah.
I
face for radio, I think.
Up.
Right? Oh.
Face, whoa. But no, I mean, okay, maybe you don't like the way someone or you feel like, oh, I'm not dressed for camera. Just show up, man. Show your mug. Come on. Show it to the world.
Or put a comb through your hair. Put a shirt on.
Stick a comb in your hair.
Yeah, I mean, I just think there needs to be some aspect of some formality. If you're going to work from home,
absolutely,
I think you should show up like you're working just the same like you would at the office, but your office just happens to be in your own home.
Right.
But show up.
Show up for the world.
Put a pair of pants on. Put a decent shirt on. Comb your hair. But show up.
Get ready for the opportunities that are going to come your way.
But even if you do all that, there is, I think, an impact to real collaboration, real engagement, and energy. I think there's something around people together, especially if you've got a good leader in that group that can energize the team. And, there's just so much more opportunity to engage and collaborate in real time. And there's something about, the contact and the energy that happens because of that. There is something around the eyes and eye contact. Dr. Huberman talks about how there is an element to eye contact and that driving something in terms of our neurobiology.
I didn't hear Dr.
Andrew Huberman.
He's talking about Dr. Andrew Huberman. Shout out to the Huberman. Is it the Huberman Lab?
The Huberman Lab, yeah.
Podcast. Yeah.
Love it.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So there's apparently, real science around eye contact in terms of being able to connect with one another and such. So
I feel it.
I think
I love in person.
Yeah,
I love human beings.
Right. There's an energy there. But a lot of people in IT are not. There are a lot of people in IT are introverts, by nature. But
sure,
I think to get the most out of people, I think you need some element of in person. And so I think it's good that we bring back more in person.
Yeah.
Get in front of a whiteboard, roll up the sleeves, get to work, have high energy.
Just start thinking it up.
Well, because
with each other.
If you just there is a lack of engagement when in this remote world. I've seen it myself.
The Figure 1 humanoids looked at each other. If robots can look at each other when they hand each other things, they don't have to.
Yeah, it was interesting.
If they can do that, humans should do that. God, the human race needs to get ahead here, folks. We're losing.
Yeah.
Our humanoids are looking at each other. They got more human etiquette than we do. Like, come on.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
I want to hit you with this real quick, and then we'll wrap it up on the Z06 C8.
Oh, you want to take a total turn?
We're gonna turn. What a nice pun.
Went from
a
technology.
Turn in the Z06 C8.
Oh, look at that. Oh, good yeah. Pun. I didn't mean to make that pun.
I just want to hit you.
Why this vehicle?
Oh, because there's a lot of buzz about it recently, and there's a lot of interest in the car community in this vehicle. You are a car guy.
I am. I have a passion for automotive technology and cars, and I love driving. I love engineering, and when you take the engineering element and you marry it with the driving experience, and then I would also say, I think there's a lot of art and beauty in a lot of the shapes, whether they're functional or simply, for aesthetic purposes. But yeah, absolutely a car person. And the Z06 is something that's on my list that I'd love to have.
It seems like and maybe it's just because I'm somewhat entrenched in the car community, but it seems like there's a buzz around the C8 Z06 at this time, and it's naturally aspirated.
Correct.
Which is super exciting. And also because would you say the 911 GT3 RS is its competition? So why I'm mentioning that is because it's also naturally aspirated, and that's what car enthusiasts appreciate, a naturally aspirated engine.
Yeah.
Now, is the C8, the Z06, is that a flat six, or is that
No.
V?
No.
That's a V.
Yes, it's a V8.
It's a V8.
Yeah. The flat six is you're thinking of a 911.
I'm thinking of 911. So,
Yeah.
but I was just wondering, thinking about, so they both have naturally aspirated engines, but different
architecture. Yeah.
Okay.
Different, type of engine.
Different price point.
Oh yes. I mean, I think a lot of the reviews I'm seeing the Z06 compared more to the GT3, not the GT3 RS.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Interesting.
I mean, they all start to kind of blend in terms of how you compare them. Yeah, you could say, well, it's their top tier model, and so let's compare both top tiers, but they have different price points.
The 911 really catapulted in their price point though within the last few years.
Oh, well, sure. Porsches have all very much gone through the roof. 911s in particular.
Z06, a C8 is. Do you know the price point on that?
The base price I want to say is like $113.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And then you go up from there. Yeah,
bang for your buck, right? And it's super.
Yeah.
Great fun car. Now they don't come in. They're not manual though, right? They don't.
That's correct. You cannot get a C8 Corvette in a manual transmission. Whereas on a GT3, you can get a manual transmission. Not on a GT3 RS, but on a GT3, you get a manual.
That GT3, that raw feeling, like in I'd say an old Carrera. And I would imagine this would be fun. This would be a very fun vehicle to have. Here we go. It's are the Carreras? They're a flat 6. Is that correct? 4.0.
No.
Burn.
No. This is where you know enough to be dangerous. So
flat 6. I'll just stop there.
Yeah.
And then
they're all flat.
Old Carrera.
All the 911s, which is
911
also
platform.
Yep. All of them are flat.
It's got the wing
engines.
is molded onto it.
Like the old turbos is what you're probably thinking
the
about.
The old turbos.
Yeah, the whale tail. Yep.
The whale tail. That tail. That tail just comes out, smacks you in the face in a good way. It's great. It's the wind just hits off of it. It's exciting. I love it. It turns into a cartoon when I start driving it.
Yeah.
It's the parts are not inanimate. It's animated and sentient. But a really great car to have would be an old Carrera, flat 6.
Oh my gosh!
Hang on, braid wheels.
You're really
a Safari braid wheels because I hit them potholes.
Yes.
And I don't mean to. I see them. I drive. I see the pothole, and I'm like, I should avoid that. And then sometimes I can, and sometimes I it doesn't happen. It sneaks up on you.
I've seen your wheels.
It sneaks. They're a little scuffed. Scuffed.
You could say that.
So,
sure.
Yeah, a little bit, but I'm a good driver. Especially stick shift.
Okay. Well, that's great that you can drive stick. Yeah.
Love stick. So the Carrera would have to be stick shift with a flat stick.
Okay.
Flat 6.
Okay.
Stick shift. That'd be really fun. That'd be a really fun vehicle to have. But those have also skyrocketed in price. And so the C8 Z06 is sort of like a sweet spot for people who it's like, okay, this car has so much to offer for that price point. And it's more in people's budget than not.
Yeah,
than the
much
other,
more
than
affordable
a Porsche.
than 911.
Yeah.
Well, it's always been the Corvette's always been much more affordable. The difference is that the C8 really ushered in a whole new level for the Corvette. So the 911 and the Corvette have always been in comparison, have always been in competition. It's just now with the newest platform of the Corvette, it's much closer in terms of the performance level. That being said, there certainly is a very different feel to the quality and the fit and finish. If you sit in one and then sit in the other, it's clear that the Porsche is just more. It just feels more solid. The materials have just a higher quality feel, generally speaking. So when you're talking about just bang for the buck and performance, the C8 Corvette is really, you can't argue with the value. Period.
It's fun too.
But if you take the dollars out, if you take the equation of the cost out of it, there's no comparison. The Porsche is still it's a superior vehicle in totality. Now, you could argue that the Z06. Now you got me saying zero. It's Z06. The Z06, even though it is a zero, it's
Z06.
Z06 comes from the option code. Years back, that was the option code. GM has always used 3-digit option codes. It's a letter and a number kind of mixture. Whether it's a paint code or an option code, it's always something. So,
and that's the type of engine.
The Z06 is now a complete package.
Yeah.
I think when it was first out, I think it was just a motor and a couple other things. Now it's a different body.
It's got a wing-a-ding on it.
It's got there's a lot more. They've added a lot more to it.
More
over the years.
aggressive looking at those intakes on the side. They come out like a fish gill.
Yeah, they are big.
Taking in the air. It's like it's the coolest.
Yeah, it is. It really is neat. So that's where it's actually Z06, but everybody simply refers to it as Z06. But
Z06.
So but the thing about the Z06, the current generation, the thing that really makes it so special is the engine. The platform that came out in 2020, the Z06 version of the C8 platform, I think was first released in 23, if I understand correctly. So the platform itself was a huge leap forward, a mid-engine platform. It really allowed the Corvette to really now start to compete, on the global scale at a real high level with its competitors, the 911 and others. But then when they put the Z06 out, they, of course, tweaked the suspension. They added aero. They added a bigger, wider body by, I think, about 3 inches wider, bigger wheels, bigger brakes, all of that. But the real gem is the engine.
Yeah.
They put a flat. Flat. You got me saying flat here. Oh my Lord.
You got a V. Let me see. A V8 4.0.
No. Gosh, let me.
And the 4 is the liters, right? But it's not a 4.
The 4 liters. You're thinking about the
That's
911. 911 GT3 RS as well as a GT3
flat 6 4.0.
That's 4.0 liter. Yeah, 4.0 liters. The V8 that's in the Corvette Z06 is a 5.5 liter. So it's larger liters. And it's a different configuration. It's a V configuration, not a flat. And it also includes 2 more cylinders. So instead of 6 cylinders, you got 8 cylinders. So it's a bigger engine.
Torque, some power.
Well, yeah. So, but it inherently will have more torque. That's correct.
That's a violent engine. Engines are violent. There's a lot of violent things going on in those pistons to make.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Make that power.
It's what most people don't realize that are not up to snuff on engines and whatnot. It's a bunch of mini explosions happening.
Yeah. Good buzz.
There's thousands and thousands of mini explosions happening every minute.
That crankshaft cranking those pistons up and down, and the ignition.
The ignition?
The little, in the piston.
The spark plug?
The spark plug.
That ignites the fuel in the air. And that's right.
And then boom, that's what
makes an explosion.
Yeah, that's what
the power.
In my mind, that's what it, and then it makes like, anyway, yeah, it's exciting. It
is.
I like the new,
but we didn't actually even get to the exciting part.
I love the engine.
You keep cutting me off. I can't.
Sorry, you were talking about the engine and how it's different than the C7, or you're talking about the Z06 engine.
Yes, the Z06 engine. And it is very different than the C7.
Yeah.
That's for sure. The C7 Z06 was supercharged.
Right.
And
it wasn't naturally aspirated.
It was a push rod. It was not naturally aspirated. It was a push rod, V8, small block Chevy design, which has been fantastic. what General Motors did with the C8 Z06 is they completely went and they innovated. Really, they took and they bought they bought 3 Ferraris, I think it was 458s, and that's really what they modeled it after. This whole C8 platform, number one, but also the flat plane crank V8. That's what makes the V8 in the Z06 so special. Is that the way that the configuration of the crank is such that it allows for higher revving. It allows for a more balanced firing order, okay, because it goes between the two banks. It goes from the one side to the other. So the way a V is configured is there's 4 cylinders on one side and 4 cylinders on the other. It's kind of like 2 4-cylinder engines that are put together.
Sure.
And it makes a V8. In a standard, I think they call it a cross-plane crank, you've got firing orders that sometimes 2 pistons on one side of the bank will actually go off in succession of each other. So that's not the way it's configured on a flat plane crank. The point of the matter is that allows you to really do some amazing things in terms of getting revs much higher, creating much more power, but it requires more engineering to make it happen, and a lot more money usually because you need more lightweight materials, et cetera. So the exciting thing is that General Motors, right, with the C8 platform, totally re-architected. Now it's a real, world-class sports car. And then they took it to a new level by adding in this real exotic engine that they've modeled after the Ferrari 458.
Yeah.
And so you've got this amazing American V8 that's been modeled after this racing technology with Italian heritage. Not to say that the flat plane is specific to Italian heritage, but that's the model that they went after in terms of the Ferrari 58 in a mid-engine platform made by an American company. It's really neat. It's really cool. And they did a ton of engineering hours in it, and it revs to 8,600 RPMs, which if you're a gearhead, that in of itself is just really cool to be able to spin an engine up to such high RPMs.
It's wild.
Like you were saying earlier, it's very violent. And
it's violent.
Yeah, to be able to spin an engine that fast and not blow it up reliably is amazing.
It's incredible. And I think of like how violent you think stars are in the universe. They live and they die and they explode, and it's kind of the same concept. You need something.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're tying a star together with a combustion engine.
Little explosion.
That's quite a.
It's nuclear.
I wonder what Neil deGrasse would think about that.
Well, I do believe there's some gamma rays coming out of that.
Out of the engine? I don't know about that.
There's little plutonium-239 pellets in there, just decay. No, I think it is. It's really cool to think about what it takes to create that power and the engineering genius behind it.
Oh, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
there's a lot of excitement behind it.
It is.
Because it's the first time, like with the new ZR1, which is based on the same engine as the Z06 and obviously on the C8 platform.
The ZR1.
So the Z06 is naturally aspirated and it's putting out 670 horsepower. And I want to say it's 500 and some pound-feet of torque. I don't quote me on that, but that amount of power out of a V8 it's never happened before.
It's a lot of horses.
Out of a naturally aspirated V8. So that's an amazing feat.
A lot of Clydesdales.
And then what they've done now with the ZR1 engine, which is the same engine, they've changed some architecture in terms of the compression ratio, and some of the parts are different, but the same architecture is, the basics of it is the same as the Z06 engine, but now it's turbocharged. And now it's 1,064 horsepower. It does 233 miles an hour. It's awesome. And so that is just what's so exciting about it is now finally GM is really competing on the market in a way that they haven't, I don't think, ever.
Yeah.
And
that's incredible.
Yeah, it really is. Now, the cool thing about it is that when the CEO of GM or Chevy, said, go build this, he basically gave the engineering team carte blanche. He said, "Go
autonomy.
do what you do what you need to do."
And that's what you get. You get this amazing product when you do. Now when you have good engineers, good leadership, like you were saying, you have to have good leadership and a good team. That you get an amazing product.
Now here's the question. So they just released a video recently where they were beating a bunch of times, published times at different tracks, different circuits around the United States. But here's the thing. in the industry, pretty much the gold standard is the Nürburgring time.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
right now, I don't know who's got the record off the top of my head, but Porsche has generally always kind of held at least one of the top records, if not the top record.
They ride low and they're nimble. They're low riders.
So they've held the record, and but it's all the Nürburgring is in their backyard.
Yeah,
so they're right
that's
there.
True.
They do so much testing on the Nürburgring. They design like the GT3 RS. They the GT2 RS. I mean, all their cars
they
have been
can
really
just
designed.
go over, they're working on something like, hey, let's go over to the Nürburgring and do a thing. And they're like, oh, let's make this adjustment because it's in their backyard. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. So,
who are people really, when they buy, like what?
People buying these cars are looking at that stuff.
Are they? Like, what's the Nürburgring time?
Yes and no.
Yeah.
I mean, here's the thing. So take out the most recent Z06. I don't think GM actually even officially released an official time for the Nürburgring for the Z06. The time that's out there is a little lackluster, to say the least. Now, a lot of people are saying it's because of the gearing of the gearbox. The transmission doesn't give it the ability to make the same times that a GT3 or an RS would. So there's some speculation there, and it'll be interesting to see what the ZR1 does around the Nürburgring if they actually even do it.
I'm excited about that.
The thing about the ZR1,
they might, maybe they'll do it, maybe they won't. I think they'll do it.
I hope so. We'll see. I mean, I don't know why they wouldn't have done it yet, but with 1,064 horsepower and all the long. See, the thing about the Nürburgring is it's very long. I'm going to say it's like 13 miles. It's a long circuit.
Did you drive the Nürburgring?
I did, yeah. I did,
okay.
3 laps on the Nürburgring in my 2014 M5 when I picked it up in Germany.
Oh, great.
2014.
Okay, and you've driven on other tracks.
Yes.
So you've driven New Jersey
Motorsports Park is one. Watkins Glen. Mm-hmm. Virginia National Raceway, Atlanta Motorsports Park.
Atlanta Motorsports, yeah.
Summit, which is in West Virginia. What's the name of that track? It's escaping me. Monticello Club in New York.
Okay. Yeah, so you've been on
Pocono.
Pocono, yeah.
Pocono Raceway. That was fun. I have not yet made it to Road Atlanta.
I think I've been on the tracks you haven't. I've Road Atlanta. I've been on that track. And then so the Nürburgring, when you were driving it, you were thinking, oh, this is a pretty long track.
I mean, I loved it. I love the fact that the longer the track, the better, in my opinion.
Isn't that the dream, to have your own track?
But it's a very challenging track for professional racers, because you have to memorize and you have to do a lot more, in terms of one lap.
Oh, sure. Oh, that's a good point.
It's a much more challenging track. Typically, it's considered a more challenging track because it's much longer. Whereas a short track, you can learn the lines, and there's less lines to learn and memorize.
Yeah. Okay. Do you think are a lot of buyers looking at this Nürburgring time just because, or do you think people are tracking the C8, the Z06?
I mean, I'm sure they are. I think people that are tracking their cars has increased in the last 10, 15 years. It wasn't so commonplace, 10
racing. Or not, I'm sorry.
Not club sport.
Club sport?
No, okay. Club sport. I mean, yeah, there's people doing club sport for sure, but just, I'm saying more generally, you got a lot more people participating in high performance driving events, which are not club sport. Club sport's, a competitive series.
Okay.
It's amateur, but it's competitive. Whereas, and there's more people, participating in that for sure. But more broadly, there's more people just participating in the hobby of high performance driving days and
track
autocross days and the hobby, the sport, the interest, the enthusiasm, the community is only, I think, increased in the last 20 years. So there's a lot more people using them on track, and I think there's a lot more focus from the manufacturers to use to make the cars track capable. So you hear a lot of the people talking about it, and you hear there's more focus from like a GM or a Porsche or any of these companies that know that their customers have customer base that want to track their cars or use their cars on autocross or use their cars for spirited driving. So there's more attention put on it for sure. Like now the C8 Corvette, I think they put it in the C7 as well, has a built-in dash cam that has the telemetry. It has telemetry built right in, so you can see your braking inputs, your throttle inputs, your steering inputs.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it's
really?
Telemetry that's built right into the vehicle, and that's exactly what people want for the track, to see how they do, how their times, where they're braking, where they're, getting under the throttle, et cetera.
Yeah.
The G-forces.
The engine is so cool in the new Z06 because you can see it from the back window.
Oh, right. Yeah.
But now I'm thinking, so I guess a roll bar isn't going in there. You're not putting a roll bar. Can you put a roll bar in there? I'm just thinking.
It's a small harness bar inside the cabin of a C8. It's a small harness bar. It's not the same as you would put into a 911.
A 911, yeah. Yeah, okay. And one other thing I really like about the C8 is compared to the C7, because I test drove one, and the hood isn't as long.
Right, because of the mid-engine
because of
platform
the mid-engine, yeah.
versus a front-engine car.
The C7 was really long, and I felt like I was in one of those old race cars from like the 1940s where they had the real long front hoods, and like the people, you were like sitting all the way in the back.
Right.
But it was you knew the hood was long. You look.
You're
out
probably thinking of the ones like from the race cars from like the 20s and the 30s.
Maybe. Okay, I wasn't sure
like
how far back.
Looking.
A fuselage.
Right. It looks more like a tube.
Yeah.
With wheel, like skinny tires.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. I think that's more from the 20s and the 30s.
Okay. Is that how far back racing goes? Wow.
Oh gosh, racing goes back farther than that. I don't know the history, but I know there's a lot more heritage coming from Europe in terms of racing.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're gonna wrap up now,
and
that's the episode. Okay. Yeah, we've drank a lot of water, and thank you for coming on, Phil. This is really great. I had a really great time, and
thank you.
And I hope to have you back as a repeated guest.
Okay.
On the L4 podcast.
That sounds good. I appreciate it.
All right, everyone. Bye, everybody.